All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming and attending this installment of the CMAC webinar series sponsored by Solenis. We're very excited to have Tyler Anderson with the International Lifeguard Critical Incident Response Alliance with us today and presenting on very good and very needed work to support our aquatic staff under times of duress and after emergency incidents. A couple of house rules.
So yesterday when I looked, it was like in the alarm mode. So
Jennifer, if you would please put yourself on mute. Couple of house rules. One is, if you would please keep your cameras off and also keep your microphones muted during the duration of the presentation. In the chat, Tyler has loaded up some resources via web links. So please feel free to go there and view those at any time during this presentation. The way our webinars generally work is we'll have about 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes of the presentation, and then we'll end with about 15 to 20 minutes of Q&A. If you would, please place your questions into the chat, and we will address those in order they come in at the end of the presentation. So with that being said, I just want to quickly introduce Tyler. Tyler is, as I mentioned, he's the president of the International Lifeguard Critical Incident Response Alliance, a nonprofit whose mission is to empower aquatics organizations with the training and support needed to prepare and recover from critical incidents. With a background in employee assistance and critical incident stress management, Tyler serves on the American Airlines Emergency Response and Critical Incident Response teams and is a diplomate of the American Institute of Stress. He's also an instructor with the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation, specializing in advancing individual and group crisis intervention. Tyler's leadership bridges proactive education and reactive support, helping organizations and individuals navigate adversity with strength and clarity. On a personal note, I want to applaud Tyler and his organization for the work they're doing. Critical incident stress among aquatic staff is something that we used to talk more about, but we haven't really talked about it enough as an industry the last probably 15, 20 years. So Tyler, thank you and your organization for picking up this much needed area of work. With that being said, Tyler, I'm going to turn it over to you. Feel free to share your screen.
Okay. It says the host hasn't allowed multiple presenters yet, so you got to add me to the. But I can go ahead and start as we get off here. So yeah, so guys, my kind of my background is just being I currently help manage the American Airlines Critical Incident Stress Management Team and work very closely with critical incident stress management teams all across the United States in police, fire, and EMS organizations, and just realized there really was not a good solution for us here in aquatics, and over the years just have gotten sort of frustrated with seeing online on Facebook and talking to aquatics professionals that there just wasn't good services for lifeguards in the way there was for other first responder groups. And I said, you know what, we can change this. We've got the knowledge, we've got the tools. The best practices and standard of care has been set really by the other first responder agencies over time. So this is something that we can easily work together to fix within the industry, but it does take everyone in the industry working together to make that happen. It's not something that I can do alone or our organization can do alone. And so we will go through this once we get the IT issues worked out.
Well, Tyler, we have a little bit of a hang up. Susan is actually the host and she is on a flight.
Oh,
so well, I don't have the ability to have you to allow you to share your screen.
Why don't I share my? If I share my presentation deck with you, can you flip through the presentation for me on your side?
I'm trying to share mine. I can't even share mine.
Ooh.
So apparently I don't have co-host.
Okay.
So that's problematic.
Yeah, that's a little problematic.
Can you drop a link to the presentation in the chat? Is that possible?
Yeah, I don't have a way to do that, but I can go, we can go through and talk about what you guys won't have the visuals, which a lot of them would be very beneficial to have.
Yeah. Let me
The
ask you this. Would you
Yeah.
be willing, would it be possible for you to email me the presentation and then I can send it out to the participants?
So I usually don't send out my whole
Okay.
presentation deck. Um,
No,
but
that's fine.
but I can find some things that we can send out for you guys at the end. So let's just kind of
Okay.
pull together and get started here. So we kind of talk about, are we taking adequate care of our lifeguards? And I think for, most of us, we realize that we're not really following best practice guidelines for critical incident stress management and the way we care for aquatic first responders in this day and age. And so that's what we're trying to help educate the industry on those best practices so we can learn and adjust those, because they can't directly be in every way pulled over from police, fire, and EMS. So we've had to sort of work and figure out, hey, you know what? What's the best practice? How do we make this work? So we kind of talk about what is a critical incident, and a critical incident is any event that produces a strong emotional response, and usually temporarily overwhelms an employee's ability to be able to cope effectively. Some of the common critical incidents that we see in aquatics are, fatal and non-fatal drownings, coworker suicides. We see that, I think every summer there's at least one that I hear about in aquatic facilities. Um, Workplace employee deaths, challenging patrons or rescues, depending on what type of aquatic environment that you are managing, whether it's pool, beach, water park. You know, Dictates what you typically see. And some of those skew towards seeing multiple a season. Some of our beach patrols see multiple critical incidents a week. So it really just it runs the gamut. Um, we know critical incident stress is an acute emotional, cognitive, and physical reaction. So there's a whole host of critical incident stress factors that occur when someone experiences a critical incident. And something that's important to know is that critical incident stress is normal. That's what we expect to see after trauma, and it really only becomes pathogenic or dangerous if it doesn't resolve on its own. Like when you start to look at the DSM and which is the clinical manual on when you start diagnosing like PTSD, we're looking at symptoms that are present over 30 days. So critical incident stress management teams traditionally work with employees within that first 30-day window. And then we, create referrals to national resource organizations, local resource organizations, et cetera, when we need to be able to help people access care. In a workplace, we may uh, provide referrals to your own internal employee assistance program. These programs work hand in hand with any established employee assistance program that you may have. What we know from working with corporate, police, fire, EMS is that those EAP systems are not used. Those employee assistance programs are not utilized well. But paired with a critical incident stress management and peer support program, it increases the utilization of those systems. We talk about kind of trauma exposure and whether or not it is, one single large event, or, this like concept of a death by 1,000 paper cuts, where there's multiple smaller events that add up and are cumulative over time, that add up to, one day something small happening, and it's just the drop that overfills the bucket. And then we end up seeing something that's a very severe reaction, but it's not necessarily due to just one event. It's because you haven't dealt with all the little events leading up to it. You know, there could be family issues at home. There could be, um, you know, problems at school. And then you've got a teen that all of a sudden has, you know, a rescue that doesn't even require CPR. And all of a sudden, this is now being experienced as a critical incident for them because it's just the drop that overflows the bucket. There's a whole list of common signs and signals of critical incident stress. I can't necessarily uh, go over all of these. I will see if I don't think it's going to let me drop this in the chat. Let me see if there's a way for me to put a picture in the chat. I don't think this is going to allow me to do this. But anyway, so there's various we classify them in categories. So there's physical symptoms, there's cognitive symptoms, such as like confusion, nightmares, we call hypervigilance, or someone that's constantly concerned about what you know, what's happening in kind of a negative way, that they're constantly on edge, poor abstract thinking, their memory starts to deteriorate, that sort of thing. There's also emotional reactions such as fear. Guilt is a big one after critical incidents, especially for lifeguards, because they feel that this was their responsibility to ensure something like this did not occur. So we see that commonly in lifeguards. Anxiety, agitation, irritability, depression, emotional outbursts with family or friends. That's very common within the first few weeks after a critical incident. And there's also behavioral uh, signals as well, and that would be like somebody withdrawing or starting to have antisocial actions, change in speech patterns, or increase of appetite, increased alcohol consumption. We do see that with you know, people that have experienced a critical incident. You know, the old way of dealing with it is first responders go home and drink. And we've really started to see that change in the first responder communities, to a big extent due to peer support teams doing education, because many first responders, they will talk to a buddy of theirs all day long, but you know, it's a pipe dream to say they will ever go to see a mental health counselor. So this is where these programs came into play, and they were so successful they're now using them all across corporate environments. I used to be an emergency response manager for another airline. I managed their crash response program, and you know, we use them there. All of the United States airlines still use them. I help to manage the American Airlines critical incident stress management team currently, and they're very, very effective. We proactively check in with employees that have had a critical incident, and ensure that, you know, their feelings are validated and normalized, and we screen to see, hey, you know what, if there's things that are uh, concerning, that we get you to appropriate care. And it runs the gamut. So you have to have people that are trained. This is not something that an aquatics director should be doing. You have to be trained to be able to do this in the post-incident space effectively. We know the first 8 hours are critical. After trauma, people begin to form what's called a trauma membrane around themselves that sort of insulates themselves from additional trauma. And so you have about 8 hours before your emotional calluses start to reform, to make it more difficult for you to be able to get through to somebody. So you really want to make sure you have a plan, it's in your emergency action plan, and that you know exactly what you're going to do. And you're not, you know, dilly-dallying with the response. It's time sensitive, and so that's why having a coordinated response is so important. And that's why we're here. We realize that ILCIRA realized that, you know, the aquatics industry just doesn't have the experience with this, and so we need to help educate the industry on what is the best practice, how we can effectively change this. So we talk about our aquatic crisis management life cycle at ILCIRA, and it's all broken down into different categories: prepare, respond, recover, and repeat. And so our life cycle and our strategies are all in those categories. And you would see our life cycle on the screen if we had that up and running. But I can go through, you know, the things that we do to prevent these accidents from occurring are all the things as we as aquatics professionals know. These are the things that the Red Cross, Ellison Associates, Starguard Elite, Life Saving Society of Canada, so the certification agencies are very good at, providing us detailed information on how we can mitigate those risks. That's not where ILCIRA's scope of expertise is. We know how to do that generally as aquatics professionals. But what we aren't doing well is preparing our staff for a critical incident and the aftermath. So what all first responder groups they try to do as a best practice is pre-incident education. So pre-incident education is, providing resiliency building tools to your staff. One of the things that we have looked at over the last year and a half, we have reviewed numerous resiliency building programs around the world and have selected a program that we're going to use for aquatics that is called Resilience First Aid. And that's going to be the aquatic leader training that the frontline aquatic leader takes to be able to support their staff, to know what builds resiliency. And the hope is that you can weave and integrate some of the skills that you learn from Resilience First Aid into your in-service training, your 4 hours of in-service training that you're doing a month. And then there is another program called High Adversity Resilience Training that is designed for organizations that experience critical incidents on a regular basis. So, those that are like beach patrols where they have multiple critical incidents a week or a month, they need more advanced skills. So that resilience first aid course is the intro, and then the high adversity resilience training is for like specialty. I actually think it would be great for a lot of aquatics directors to take because it helps kind of teaches you how to mitigate burnout. And I can't think of a profession that, it typically is more burnt out than an aquatics director. I've been there, many times, and sometimes it's hard to keep up with it all. And you're constantly, being hit with all sorts of things to try to keep a facility up and running, to take good care of your teams, to be that good servant leader that we know is effective with youth. And so that's a great course for kind of learning advanced skills. And I'll give you some more information at the very end. If I can figure out a way to put the links in the chat, I will do that. And then heart rate and stress reactions. I have a chart here that you guys would have been able to see that basically it tells you, once your heart rate starts to get higher, your cognitive faculties, basically your executive functioning that's in the front side of your brain, starts to shut down. And so this is utilized in police, fire, EMS to teach people how to continue to be effective under stressful situations. And the things that we know that help employees keep their heart rate lower, therefore keeping their prefrontal cortex and their executive function intact, is high fidelity training, ensuring that when we do training, we're putting them in the most realistic position possible so that when they get to an actual emergency, it's like, wow, Tyler put me through the gamut, in training. This is easy compared to that. That's what you want your staff to be able to say. So the more you stress test them and, provide that high fidelity training in advance, it protects them during a critical incident. So we know that is protective. We also know that lifeguards have told us that the things that you don't train them for as a lifeguard instructor are the things that most stick with them. For example, during a resuscitation event, and many of the lifeguards had never seen a Lucas chest compression machine, or a thumper is kind of an old term for that. And so they tell us that, seeing this with person getting IVs and, amp pushes into the IV, like all of this, that's what keeps them up at night. That's what causes distress. Because weren't really trained about this. There was a little section in their textbook, but they hadn't seen it. So one of the best practices that I know we did where I worked is we invited uh, the local fire department in, and we did an in-service once a year. We did a full walkthrough of our emergency action plan, through extrication, transfer to EMS care with using IV fluids, and applying the Lucas chest compression machine, through pulling them out, through doing a press briefing later that day. And so the people are able to see the whole continuum of what to expect in the aftermath of a critical incident. And so that's protective for people when they have experienced this, and they know what their position is, what they're going to do, not just for the immediate response, but also that whole day. You're going to need your staff, possibly answering phones and fielding media phone calls and things like that, for a smaller organization that doesn't have a corporate communications team, that can feel very, very stressful for them. So the more you script those things out and provide them resources to be able to ensure that they're trained to do all of this, the better. So the facility I worked at, we had, mock phone calls. We'd have people call in and they had to respond. And, anything you can do to help them prepare for what that day is going to look like is helpful. I would show you our model of resilience. It's called the PR6 model. It is basically 6 domains of resilience. And so our programs, resilience first aid, high adversity resilience training, go through kind of all the things, when I took the class for the first time, it was all the things that I wish I knew at 18, going off into the world. But we know the more you build proactive resilience, the more protected people are on the flip side, when a critical incident occurs. And so our programs are broken down into a proactive response, and a reactive response. So the proactive programs are resilience first aid and high adversity resilience training for those facilities that have a lot of critical incidents, or for aquatic instructors that just want additional information. The resilience first aid course is the general course that we teach. We go over that PR6 model in great detail, on basically how do you protect yourself psychologically, and take care of yourself psychologically. And then the reactive portion of our program is called critical incident stress management. That is being handled by our newly formed aquatic critical incident response team. So we are working with Ellison Associates, Stargard Elite, Rhode Island State Parks, and Connecticut State Parks on a pilot program where we are utilizing and training individuals to be members of the United States Aquatic Critical Incident Response Team. They're receiving multiple levels of training depending on what their role is in the organization. So we have the entry level volunteer is called a lifeguard peer support volunteer. And then the individual that organizes a group, like let's say, a large theme park company wanted to be a member of the Aquatic Critical Incident Response Team. They have a membership organization group coordinator. And so there's a training level for them where they get more advanced training. And then our leadership volunteers, there's 2 training levels for them. One is called a Mental Health Resiliency Officer 1 and Mental Health Resiliency Officer 2. And there's different qualifications and classes they have to take to be able to get to that point. So for example, the duty manager that you call in, I'll share at the end, I'll share our 1-800 number. The duty manager is somebody that's trained at least at the Mental Health Resiliency Officer 1 training level. And then there's a second level for people that are kind of doing more advanced interventions with people to support them. So we move into kind of how do we respond to a critical incident or an event. Staff must, during the emergency, they must act in accordance with their training and they must meet their applicable standard of care. But also how you as managers and administrators, that also matters very much so. If, you know, do you have the training in place? And for most aquatics organizations, the answer is there's some room for improvement here. Um, do you have systems in place to be able to assist lifeguards with the emotional trauma of a critical incident? Remembering, if you have an employee assistance program where they just shoot out a marriage and family therapist because that's who's on call, it could be helpful and it could not. We see a lot of times that if you don't have um, therapists that are trauma informed, trauma trained, trained in CISM, sometimes you don't get great results. But these CISM teams work very closely with employee assistance programs and can improve the effectiveness of the referrals for people that need extra support. So some of the immediate action steps you can take as a non-CISM trained aquatics professional at your facility after an event. I have on my screen now Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I don't get too much into to the detailed psychology of this, but at the bottom of it is meeting physiological needs. And that's something that you want to make sure you do, that you're basically helping your staff recover from being in fight or flight mode. What happens when you experience a critical incident is your body dumps cortisol and adrenaline into your bloodstream. And that takes anywhere from a couple of weeks to up to a month to reabsorb or excrete out of your body. And so the things that we want to be doing is encouraging our staff, educating them that that occurs and helping them to recover. And how we do that is, give them a bottle of water, put them in the staff lounge, let them just relax a little bit after an event. Let their body kind of recover. You can encourage deep breathing. There's box breathing. Another really great technique is a breathing technique where you breathe in for 5 seconds, you hold for 5 seconds, and then you breathe out for like 8 or 9 seconds. So the exhalation being longer than the inhalation helps to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the counteraction to the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight mode. So by helping your body to recover from that, the exhalation is very important. So by slowing down breathing and having a very long exhalation, you can help your body recover from being in fight or flight mode. We also know we want to make sure that they stay away from drinking energy drinks. There are strong links to drinking energy drinks after critical incident and PTSD. So we want to encourage them to stay away from those monster energy drinks. Now, if they drink a lot already, we're not saying stop cold turkey, but maybe you only have, one or a half of one for the day, not the whole can, not multiple cups of coffee. And that takes education on your part as an aquatics leader on what you can do to help your team recover. Ensuring they're eating well. We know that tryptophan-rich foods like turkey can help those chemicals start to stabilize. So we always try to get them to eat healthy, eat leafy greens, have some protein if they can put some turkey, anything that has tofu or tryptophan in it. You can look online. There's lots of eggs have tryptophan. Eating tryptophan-rich foods can help. So those are the things kind of what you do. And, as we go up that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there's safety needs next that they know that they're kind of safe. And then belongingness, having a team to hang out with while they recover, knowing they're not alone. And this is part of peer support, knowing that it's not just them going through this, that this is pretty common. It's common to have, uh, you know, some flashbacks, or it's common to have some sleep disturbances. I should say intrusive thoughts really are the more common piece that we see. And knowing that in the first couple of days and weeks that may occur, and that's something we don't we don't get concerned about. We get concerned about some of the physical symptoms. So that's what our trained aquatic critical incident response team is helping organizations now to be able to screen their employees after an event. We talked about the box breathing techniques that activates the parasympathetic nervous system. This is heavily used now with the Coast Guard, Navy SEALs. I was just at a course recently with the United States Marshals Service, who told me that their officers now use those breathing techniques before they go into a stressful situation to ensure their cognitive faculties are intact. Because what that breathing does is it helps your sympathetic nervous system, and it allows your executive function to remain intact when they go into stressful situations like busting through a door that they don't know what's happening on the other side. So they'll do some deep breathing as a group before they go into, as like a SWAT team, going into a situation like that. Let's see here. Ultimately, we want our staff to recover from a critical incident, and that's where, organizations that are like critical incident stress management teams can assist. Our organization is the first organization that has a aquatic specific program for critical incident stress management. We worked with an organization called the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation, which is who credentials many of the critical incident stress management teams worldwide. To develop a CISM for the aquatic first responder specialty course for the aquatics industry. That is a 2-day course. Right now, it's only being offered for Ellis, Stargard, their leadership teams. We're training them in October, along with their CEOs. And then within our pilot program that we're doing, but in the coming years, you will see that, there'll be membership levels that you can join at. And if you choose to develop a team of your own, you can embed that within our organization, and it will be a part of an overall aquatic critical incident response team, what we call the integrated aquatic critical incident response team, because it's integrated within lots of different organizations within the United States. And we provide the structure, the referral network, for advanced cases. You can refer them up to us, and I'll take them myself. If it's something that you're not comfortable with, I have a lot more experience. I'm happy to take those cases, so that you're not put in a position that you're dealing with something that you're not used to dealing with or comfortable dealing with. We have a video, but we won't be showing that today, on critical incident stress. We have talked about some of the action steps, some things that you kind of want to avoid as an aquatics director after a critical incident. You don't want to force somebody to talk to you. They'll talk when they're ready. You don't want to rehash the traumatic event in detail. You don't want to tell them what they should be thinking or feeling. False reassurance that everything will be okay. Might it? Yeah, but maybe it's not. Like the people that I see that are most affected sometimes are the people that already have pre-existing mental health conditions. And so this sort of throws them in a tailspin. So that's something that we just don't want to set up expectations that may not be true. We don't want to assume dysfunction because critical stress is normal. Hey, Susan,
Yeah.
your audio is on. Can you mute yourself? Let's see here. We have a video from Brene Brown that I will try to drop in the chat. From here.
Just made it.
Hey, Susan, I believe your mic is on.
Just want to get your foot. Thank you.
All right. I will see if I can send that out, or I'll send it to Dewey and he can send it out. But it basically just says, the difference between sympathy and empathy, and you can Google that online too. It's Brene Brown, Sympathy versus Empathy. It's a great video that shows the difference in how you respond to somebody, whether it's an empathetic response or a sympathetic response. And she does it far better than I could explain it myself. So I always include it in these sessions. Also,
Tyler, I now have the ability to, I now have hosting ability.
okay,
So you should be able to share your screen now if you want to show the Brene Brown video.
cool. Okay, awesome. All right, entire screen. Can you guys see that and hear that?
We can see it. You'll probably have to click share audio as well.
So what is empathy and why is it very different?
All right. Help me out with that.
Yep,
Audio
it just came
setting.
through. So you're good, Tyler.
Oh, we're good. Okay. All right.
Yep, we're seeing the thumbnail though.
Okay, let me see what I can do here.
We're seeing your screen as it is in presentation mode where you see the next available screen. There you go.
All right, I'm going to show this just here. You guys are able to see it.
So what is empathy and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, climb down. I know what it's like down here and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice and it's a vulnerable choice because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
And that's true, guys. You know, it's just about how you say things and how you connect with people. And if you are not used to, doing that, that's something that can be a little bit scary for people. I'll figure out how I can play from current slide. But you guys are going to see. Hmm. I will run through here on just you guys can see here. We kind of wrapped up. We got a lot of the material here that we've gone through. This is that aquatic crisis management life cycle that I was referring to, that kind of describes all of the cycle that we have in the prepare steps, the respond steps, recover, and repeat. We've got a number of resources that aquatics directors have if they are affiliated and working with our program, that it helps them prepare their staff for critical incidents. But this is something that I like to always share is the Homeland Security Health and Performance Continuum. This is something that I has kind of kept up on my wall when I was an aquatics director, because when I had staff that were affected by something, knowing, how do I help them maintain or improve if they are struggling? And so I will send this to Dewey, and he can send this out to the group that is here in the session. But this is a great thing to just kind of keep that it tells you, how to improve if someone's starting to have decreased performance, poor performance. This is what we use in critical incident stress management when we're working with people. You'll notice one of the first things, or one of the things that is how to improve when they start to get decreased performance or poor performance is a peer support program. And this is what we have to do better at, having peer support available. And that's what that resilience first aid course does. It helps aquatics leaders know how to support their teams and how to provide that proactive peer support. Now, that training does not train you on what to do after a critical incident and how to support your teams. That is a specially trained group that you need access to for that. But with both of those programs, it's a complete continuum of care for your employees. And I'm not trying to pitch this is the only option. There's other options out there. This is just, I went through the gamut of reviewing various programs, and these were the best ones that I found out there worldwide. I took more classes than I would like to share. But so, what are we doing right now to help you prepare, respond, recover, and repeat? We are doing foundational research into lifeguard critical incident stress through our partnership with Kennesaw State University. They have a Center for Advancement of Military and Emergency Services Research. And we are currently doing an industry critical incident survey, which I put in the chat at the beginning. And I would love if everyone's signed up to take. Basically, you sign up for our updates, our newsletter. We send them out quarterly, so it's not like we're going to spam you a lot with information. But that allows us to keep you up to date with the research when that starts to get published. And then it'll take you, as soon as you sign up, to a link to the International Lifeguard and Aquatic Professional Critical Incident Prevalence and Impact Study. There's really never been a global study on lifeguard mental health. So that's something that we've started, and we would like every lifeguard to participate in that's over the age of 18. And if you manage a facility, then you can respond for your staff that's under 18 and share the types of events that they've experienced. So we'd like everybody to take that. We're also doing a pilot program, like I said, with Ellison Associates, Stargard Elite clients, Rhode Island State Parks and Connecticut State Parks right now. And then we're also working with Life Saving Society of Canada to develop a program embedded within their organization. With most countries that have a federated life-saving model, this organization is embedded in their life-saving society or federation. We just have a more complex case here in the US. So for us to be able to do this in the United States with so many life-saving organizations, we needed a nonprofit to be able to organize this for the industry. And so that's what this is basically the result of that work. We've talked a little bit about the Aquatic Critical Incident Response Team and how we scan for that. This is the General Industry Prevalence and Impact Survey and Interest Form. So if you scan this QR code here, it's going to take you to the same link that is in the chat to be able to take the Critical Incident Prevalence Survey. And then we also what can we do for your team now? You're welcome to call us, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you on what you can do. We know some people are kind of budget constrained and may not be able to do everything at once, and it may be a multi-year process to get you aligned with best practices in this day and age. And so we can talk about, hey, what can we do now? And what can we do later? What are the things that we need to, if you can't afford this, what are some options that, you might be able to afford? My goal is to ensure that lifeguards in the United States and internationally have access to the services. I would like them to see them have the best services, especially being minors. Um, if other first responders have access to it, I want them to have access to the same thing. But if it's something that your organization can't do, then call me and we will have conversations of what can you do? What incremental steps can we take to be able to get you to where we want to be eventually. Um, I'm offering these two courses for 20% off right now. I just launched this. So you guys are actually the first people in the industry that are being offered the ability to take these classes online. Next year, we will probably be doing these virtually where there will be either a blended learning or a fully online concept. And then we'll probably start teaching these in conjunction with industry conferences like the AOAP conference, World Water Park, NRPA, that sort of thing. So the Resilience First Aid course is the general course that I would recommend the average aquatic person to take. You will get a manual shipped from Sydney, Australia, where their headquarters is, as well as a responder first aid kit, which looks like this. That has a lot of neat things in there, like there's skill tiles. They'll send you in a little bag that you can use with your employees to educate them. There's posters in the pack that you can use to put up in your staff break rooms. So it's a really great program that will teach you how to support your team and how to increase their resilience to a critical incident as a protective factor. You'll get a little manual like this, but you'll also get a big manual. This is just in the little responder kit. But if you scan there and then put in CMAHC 2025, there's a 20% off discount code to be able to take either course. I would recommend, if you're just starting out with us, to take the Resilience First Aid course. The High Adversity is definitely a good course, but I would take the Resilience First Aid course first and then take High Adversity second if you want some additional skills in your pocket or deal with critical incidents on a regular basis. And so that code is valid through October 18th. And that's the big part of what I had. The QR code here has my contact card on it. You're welcome to save my contact information. We have an emergency assistance hotline that is 1-401-203-3675, option 1. And that will ring to me first. If I am in flight, then are not available, it goes to one of our other duty managers that are trained. And so we're happy to help you right now. We'll have like membership levels set up. But right now we're still kind of doing the research, and anybody that calls, we figure out a way to help. So we encourage you to call and either for a proactive consultation or after an event. We always like to plan ahead of time and not be reactive and be proactive, as with everything else in emergency response. But we realize sometimes life gets in the way. Let's see, Dewey, what questions do we have?
Well, first, Tyler, just what an amazing service, with the emergency assistance hotline. I'm just continually amazed, impressed, and awed by the work that y'all are doing. This is amazing. I have a couple of questions to start off with. One, just kind of a technical nuance thing, right? So we those of us been around for more than a decade or so, we remember CSID versus CSIM. Can you explain the difference between the two concepts?
So the critical incident stress debriefing is one component of critical incident stress management. So critical incident stress management, there's a whole toolbox of things that we use. Crisis management briefings, which is like a briefing with all of your staff. A diffusing, which we use with just the staff that was impacted by the emergency. And then there's individual well checks. And then there is the critical incident stress debriefing. So what we have done as an organization, we took that out of our program, mainly because the Red Cross has a dated position statement out against it, and we wanted to be respectful of the Red Cross's position, and ensure that we were, not crossing paths with the Red Cross. And the reason why there is concern with CISD is because you put people in a group and you ask them basically to tell their story. And there is a risk that if it's not done correctly by properly trained people that control the situation, that you are exposing people that may not have been exposed to trauma to someone else's trauma. And so I'll tell you what happened at a facility. They called me after the event up in Canada, where it was at a lake and they had a drowning, and they invited the park service, they invited the lifeguards, they invited the snack bar staff and everybody, and they held a CISD basically with the aquatics director doing this, which a CISD cannot be done without a trained peer and a trained clinician. So you've got to have a mental health professional. So you are not allowed to do that by yourself. And so and that's part of the reason why is you have to make sure that you're not exposing people to, to trauma that they weren't themselves exposed to. And so that has to be grouped correctly and appropriately. This is why, me looking from the outside in the industry and how we've been doing things, I'm like, guys, we've got to fix this. This is something we have to do better. This is not appropriate, with what the standard of care is these days. And so is why I was so passionate about saying, hey, you know what? I know we have a way to fix this. We just have to get together and come together to fix this, together as an industry. And that's, I can't do this myself. ILCIRA is just, small. We're a combination of the whole industry coming together on this to fix this. And it's sort of like CMAHC, it takes the whole industry and the expertise of the industry to make CMAHC successful, and the support of the industry. No one person can do that. And in the same way, ILCIRA cannot be supported only from ourselves. We need corporate sponsors. We need, individual sponsors. We need people, volunteers to help us. So you can go on our website and fill out a volunteer application to join our leadership team. We have to have everybody pulling in the right direction to make this happen. And I know this because I've benchmarked off other organizations, life-saving organizations that have done this under less austere conditions, where they are doing this within the Life-Saving Federation, and there's huge support. So, but thanks for the question, because that commonly gets confused, but CISD is just one component of the overall CISM continuum of care.
Yeah, I've got a follow-up question on the clinician aspect of it, right? So let's say I'm looking at, implementing this for my facilities. I have access to a clinician to serve in that role, right? Can any mental health professional serve this role? Or, are there varying degrees, trauma counselors, whatever, that we need to be looking for?
No. So the lifeguard peer support volunteer is the frontline person. So for the average person, they won't talk to anybody other than a lifeguard peer support volunteer that goes through 2 days. If there is a complex case, then they get escalated in our team through to the national level, which is what I'm kind of managing. So we've got access to people that have had the advanced level training you would take to be on a state CISM team. As well as people that are called peer paracounselors, which is they've got to go through the training for the state CISM team, and then they go through an additional class for that. And then these lifeguard peers are the aquatic mental health resiliency officers 1 and 2. Based on what they can do, the 1 can do peer paracounseling. The 2 is allowed to do something called the acute stress adaptive protocol with lifeguards 18 and older. which basically is an EMDR informed protocol where we can help with trauma reprocessing, and it's cutting edge. This is brand new. It's a pilot, like running under a pilot program with EMDR International, which is the organization that trains clinicians internationally in EMDR. They are piloting a program to allow peer support teams, critical incident stress management teams, to also be able to do a group or individual EMDR informed intervention. So there's different levels in our team, and depending on what level you make it to, depends on what level support you can provide. And so we're trying to basically, the frontline aquatics organization, they just need people that really can be doing the proactive stuff with the resilience first aid. And then when you have an event, we're basically asking, we don't think it's a great idea to train everybody in the reactive portion, because you want people that use the skills on a regular basis, that do this, you get good at it. And so we're looking at kind of like a membership model where people can join, and then we'll have a team for the industry. We're working with a trade organization. I can't announce it yet, but to develop a team embedded within one of the industry trade organizations, so that there would be membership levels that the average aquatic facility can join at, so that when there's an event, we've got a group of volunteers that can help anybody in the industry, and these volunteers do this on a regular basis, so they're competent, they get good at it. What you don't want is somebody doing this that really only does this once every 5 years. Like, you're never going to get good at it. So that's why we have two sides to our training. We've got the proactive side, which is the resilience first aid and high adversity resilience training for the frontline aquatic professional, or I'm sorry, the leaders of the aquatic professionals. And then the reactive component is the aquatic critical incident response team, which there will be eventually membership levels you can join at. If you have something happen right now, call me. I will help you out. All summer I've had calls that I've just helped people at this point, because we don't have everything set up. So we're just kind of assisting people as they call in right now. But eventually, we have to find a way to fund the organization with membership levels, since we're not owned by a life-saving organization like other countries are. This has to be done in a slightly different way than it is for other countries that have done this.
Yeah. And I just want to point out for those watching and here today, ILCIRA is an all volunteer team.
Yeah.
So these folks are donating, and there's very strong names, folks that I know, I respect to death, many of these individuals, and they are all giving of their time to do this. That's one thing that makes ILCIRA so impressive. It's very, very pure in its approach to supporting folks. So Tyler, I've got a couple of questions, right? One is, so should there be someone assisting staff who are asked to write up what happened after a critical event?
So this is more of a legal question, but I can tell you just from, traditionally, I'll, speak from other attorneys that I've spoken to, and they traditionally would not advise you to have someone coaching your staff on what to say. You can make sure they have access to a manual, so that they can, review what policies and procedures they followed, and are able to document that, because we know that if it wasn't documented, it didn't occur. In case of legal representation, you want to make sure everything's documented appropriately, and that the key things that you need to include. That's not coaching at an event. If it's there all the time and it's just a resource, then you're not coaching them. But generally, I would think that I'm not an attorney, but most attorneys are going to tell you you can't coach your staff on what to say in an incident report. So that's stuff you've got to practice ahead of time, and, you know, have all those resource tools, you know, available up front.
Right. Excellent. I've got one more follow-up, and I think we're out of questions and running long on time. How has so I'm an advocate of, you know, showing real life footage of resuscitative events, right? And preparing staff for what to expect. I'm a huge advocate of that. Kudos for your comments earlier about showing Lucas and showing them pushing epi and showing actual resuscitative care, right? What have you found as you've promoted this, as you've exposed staff, right? What have you at least anecdotally seen their response? Has that been something significantly helpful? I hear all the time, oh, we shouldn't do that because it's freaking out the staff, right? They're not ready for that. What's been your experience in seeing that done?
Yeah, I mean, I take that to heart. Like, if you're not ready to see this, then you're not ready to be a lifeguard, because this is a professional. Them ahead of time. Just don't throw it up on, you know, the video of, you know, we have in our resource file that we provide to people that are within our membership organization, or in our pilot program right now, has you know, real life resuscitation events. And I want people to see agonal breathing. I want people to see the foam. You know, I want people to see that ahead of time in a controlled classroom environment and know this is okay. And so I have one video that has an anesthesiologist that's kind of going over what you're seeing, in that, so that they see why, you know, why these things occur. And I think those are protective factors. Or it's going to say, you know what, maybe this isn't the right job for me. Maybe working at the local grocery store bagging groceries might be a more appropriate job. Like this I can either handle or I can't. And, you know, I think that's part of being a professional rescuer, is you have to know what can you handle and what can't you. And not everybody's cut out to be a lifeguard, as we know. You know, we want to make sure that we set appropriate expectations so that we're protecting the staff ahead of time. You know, us just trying to get somebody on a stand that's not really prepared, it's doing nobody a service other than whoever's, you know, the coin, you know, person at the end of the day, that's making money. Like, that's not what we should be doing as lifeguard instructors, instructor trainers, in my opinion. You know, and we'll take that with a grain of salt, but you know, I feel like we have to be better at preparing our lifeguards for what the realities are, when that day comes, because I see people every day, now that people tell me, you know, people are calling regularly and telling me stories that have happened, and the lifeguards really, weren't prepared for what they were going to see. And that's on us as an industry, that we have to do a better job of, you know, training them, providing them high fidelity training, that represents what they're going to experience, if that day comes. We all hope that it's going to be safe and we're not ever going to have that happen at our facility. But, you know, it is what it is. Like I tell our flight attendants from on the airline at the airline, you know, we have, you know, people have CPR, and, you know, and then they're not, they want somebody else to do it, and they want to go to the front of the cabin. And it's like, no, this is your job. This is what you're here for. You know, you can't run away, whether it's a security event, whatever it is, you have to, you know, tackle it head on. This is part of your job, and you knew going into this is what you had to, you know, had to possibly face, and you got to prepare people adequately for those, you know, those conditions. And I think that, you know, we do a great job in many respects. It's just there's a couple things I think we can do a little bit better, with the industry, and just us as trainers, you know, not necessarily in the certification class, but when we do in-services, when we have those 4 hours of in-service training a month, you know, that we can take it to the next level and ensure they're prepared. I think that we have an opportunity there.
Your lips to God's ears, Tyler. So that's absolutely. I'm glad to hear that, you know, that's being recognized and ILCIRA is carrying that torch and saying these things because it's desperately needed. It's something we've lost over the years. So thank you so much for that. So we're getting a lot of comments our questions in the comments of the chat rather about resources and available resources. Tyler, I think the best thing that people can do is to go to the ILCIRA website, right? What's the website again?
ILCIRA.org. As soon as you go there, it's going to take you to a pop-up to be able to sign up for the newsletter. So if you go there, you don't need to go to the link that I put in the chat. And you'll be able to sign up there and it will take you to the critical incident study, which will take about 20 minutes to complete. It'll also email it to you. So if you can't do it immediately, it will email you the link so that you can do it tonight. Just don't forget, because it's very important for us to draw that line between other first responder groups and lifeguards experiencing the same thing, because other first responders get access to SAMHSA funding and things that we don't have access to because it's not documented in the research. So we absolutely need every single lifeguard and aquatics director to fill this out because it's the only way we're going to get additional funding to be able to support lifeguards outside of charging, you know, people for services, which, you know, I would love to be able to do this all for free, but, you know, we have a business that we have to operate. So we got to figure out some way to do that. And I feel like there's an opportunity for us to access some government mental health funding if we get, you know, enough people to participate in the research that we're doing now.
Yeah. Awesome. Tyler, thank you so much. I apologize for the IT difficulties, but I think we've recovered pretty well. Thank you for your expertise and your passion. Everyone today, please go to ilcira.org and, you know, sign up, learn more about it, support it, promote it, share it. For our public health officials attending today, share it with the facilities. The more we can get this information out, the better we are as an industry, the better we are as communities, and the better our staff is when they are doing these life-saving heroic actions. So Tyler, thank you so much. Thank you for everyone that has attended today. And I didn't mention this at the very beginning, but thank you to our sponsor, Solenis, who is sponsoring our webinar series to where people can attend this for free. So again, Tyler, many, many thanks, my friend. Thank you so much for you and the entire ILCIRA group for the work that you're doing. And with that, I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you, guys.